Hello, I'm Mike Bain from Christian Voice New Zealand. Now, before I get into this week's topic, I just want to acknowledge a couple of things which have happened. The first one is congratulations to Christopher Luxon, David Seymour and Winston Peters for uniting to form a government to move this country forward. Now, since the announcement of a coalition agreement being reached, you can almost feel the weight of the social experiment that this country has been put through during the years of the previous government being lifted. This government, if it remains true to its word, will end many things which have threatened the future of the culture of our country. As Christians, we should ensure that we pray Luxon and his government make the right decisions to bring unity along with the freedoms that we all once enjoyed back into New Zealand. So on to today's subject. It's one which I've pondered and I've asked individuals over the years, and always the answers, well, they're varied. So today I'm asking you, the viewer, to just ponder before you answer the question, which is this: who would you take a bullet for? I know. Who would you take a bullet for? Strange question, I know, but one we possibly have never considered. In today's society worldwide, we see many people in the role of bodyguards, security details, and so forth. Now, probably the most famous is the Secret Service, who protects the President of the United States. But there are many others around the world dedicated to the protection of one another. Here in New Zealand, as an example, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon is protected by a diplomatic squad whose job is, as in all cases, to protect the lives of those they serve. Now, thinking about the US for a moment, history shows that only 4 brave men have been killed in the line of duty while serving the President. I've got to tell you, though, that the pay rate and the prospects of a long-term contract for protecting the leader, it's just not great. And to be honest, the current US protection squad's biggest threat to the President is to ensure he's aware of what day it is and to help him down a flight of stairs rather than anything external. But the question I ask is, who would you be prepared to take the bullet for? Would it be said, maybe your boss, maybe your friend a little closer to home, your wife, your husband? What about your mother-in-law, children, mum and dad? I mentioned when I asked this, I had varying responses, but what was common was the shock. The thought that you would be given a choice to end your life so another could live is something, no average person thinks about on a daily basis, and yet many men and women around the world face that very question every day. So, who would you take a bullet for? I know. It's probably the most strangest question you'll ever be asked. It's so absurd and unlikely, but is it? Many generations in the past have seen young men and recently young women lay down their lives to protect total strangers, people whom they've never knew. Now, these people have given up their lives to protect an ideal, a flag, a country, without question. We acknowledge their sacrifice once a year at an Anzac service because it's the thing that we do. But as generations pass, we wear the medals commemorating the past campaigns and battles fought with pride, but some do it without thought as to how they were awarded or what it took to be awarded. The sacrifice of one man or thousands to save the lives of others. Today, closer to home, we see many, and I mean many people, who are without fear or trepidation running towards the danger we flee from to save the lives of others. It's not a bullet that they're facing, but it's putting their lives first to save others and property. So, who would you take a bullet for? Is the question now so absurd, so ridiculous? I may be wrong, but I used to think it was natural that if our fellow man was in danger, we would do our best, our utmost, even put our own lives at risk to save them. As a parent, spouse, or colleague, would you not do everything you could to save others? I'm more than happy to report there are still some who would, but I am sad to say today's generation, those who live on our planet are reluctant to insist. We're happy to stand by or even drive by an incident with a mindset of somebody will help. Worse still, others will pull out their cell phones and film the incident and post it on social media for their own infamy. Now, as much as I think of this as a despicable act of selfishness, I'm not here to judge you. And yet, here we are, almost at the end of 2023, living our lives like there's no tomorrow. But I ask why? If you live in New Zealand, the reason why you can live your life like that comes down to those young men who left our shores with no promise of return during the two major wars last century. The many men and women who served in the forces and are deployed around the globe to serve for an ideal of peace. The men and women who serve in the emergency services in this country, to who at possibly the cost of their own lives are there to protect those who they've never met. So who would you be prepared to lay down your life for? You know, it's a question which I hope you'll never have to answer, but if we were, I hope you'd be able to respond the way that somebody like the Good Samaritan did in biblical days. I hope you'll find the courage to stand against oppression, as many have over the century, and were prepared to lay down their lives. Who would you take a bullet for? You know, there is no answer, but can I tell you about a man who wasn't killed by a bullet, but he gave up his life, killed in such a barbaric way. His death was encouraged and orchestrated by those whom he served. But he willingly gave up his life for the sake of mankind, so that you and I can enjoy our lives today and tomorrow. On Anzac Day, we wear the servicemen medals without too much thought, but those thousands of lives saved many. Who would you take the bullet for? Ponder the question, but also think about the one man who gave his life for all the world, for all mankind to have the hope of everlasting life, and that man, as we head into the festive season, should be top of our minds, and that man is Jesus Christ.